Hello my beautiful people. So something a little different for you this time. You guys are used to seeing me read the tarot for you. You are used to me talking about numerology. It's time for some astrology. We are stepping into eclipse season, and yes, you will see the whole internet and all of YouTube is awash and abuzz with all of the with all about this stuff. I've got my trusty notes here. The reason I'm doing these solar eclipse specials, and we'll be doing all of the eclipse specials, is because not only is it a different energy, I mean, we've had a little dip into it, but this is where it gets real. This is where it gets, intense, and where it gets serious. And because we're switched from the Leo Aquarius axis, which, trust me, I felt because I am a Leo rising and an Aquarius sun. So I really felt those ones, and actually I can now, looking back on it, really see the benefit of it. At the time it felt like absolute fucking shite, if I'm completely honest with you, because I felt like a ping pong ball in the middle of a storm out at sea. That's just the truth of it. You know, there were moments that were really great that I could see the benefit of, but there were some moments that I was like, do you know what, I don't know how this is going to serve my greater good, but in hindsight, I can see how it worked. So there's a couple of things that I want to talk about before we go into the video itself, right? And I've got, my trusty notes here, because as many of you know, astrology, tarot I can do with my eyes closed, right? In fact, I probably could do it with my eyes closed, even though it's all about the symbols, right? But just from the feeling, I would be able to do that. Whereas astrology is such a bigger and broader subject, and I don't have nearly as many years under my belt in that field as I do with the tarot, with the cards and the symbols there. So I always have notes because I'm just not as practiced. I call myself a baby astrologer. A lot of people say, I think you're being too harsh on yourself, but whatever, it's not about that. So with that said, before we go into your personal, horoscope, eclipse scope, tarot scope, whatever you want to call it, right? Yes, there will be tarot. Come on, that's what I do, right? There's a few things that I want to clarify on. So you see this, I've drawn it out, and yes, it looks pretty, and it looks mysterious, and it's got the symbols on the wheel and all the rest of it, and we're all familiar with what a chart looks like. Well, 90% of people nowadays are familiar with what a chart looks like. The problem that this chart creates is that people tend to see this kind of thing, especially a big event like an eclipse, as just a flash in the pan. They kind of see it like a static moment. And while it is true that the specific moment of the eclipse will imprint your life with a specific type of energy, right? And that's really important to remember. So when you read somebody's birth chart, when you look at somebody's personal astrology, when you see a personal one of these for somebody, what you're actually looking at is a specific moment in time that is imprinted into their DNA, right? There's, all of the stars aligned in a certain way to give you a certain energy that was going to unfold. Astrology breathes, it moves. Human beings are not, we're multifaceted. We move, we breathe, we grow, we change, we evolve. Just like the moon, we are cyclic. We go through great, awesome periods, and we go through low, sort of not so awesome periods. And that's one of the things that you really need to understand. This isn't just an event that will happen on this day and then you can forget about it. It's kind of like a toolbox. Imagine it's like a gift that the universe gives you on a specific day and says, right, here you go, I'm going to give you this, and you get to unpack that over the next 3 to 6 months. It's never just a flash in the pan moment, and this is why people talk about the eclipses so much, and why people often say, well, this will happen, over the next 3 to 6 months, and sometimes even further beyond. Like I said, I can see a lot of the stuff that I'm doing and living and experiencing now in relation to the eclipses that we finished up in Aquarius and Leo. So it's really relevant stuff, but you need to understand it's a process, not an event, right? It's an unfolding of energy that is imprinted into you on the specific day. So pay attention to that day, because it may well have elements of what this energy is going to be like for you over the next 6 months, what it might unfold, how it might grow. But don't let this video, don't let me, don't let anybody ever reduce you or your infinite beingness down to just a specific set of events that are all about your, oh well, your second house is your money. Yes, it does represent that, and it's good to know that. And it's great to see, if we can predict these things accurately, which is wonderful. But don't let anything, any system in the world, astrology, tarot, numerology, don't let me, any other reader, whether tarot reader, astrologer, whatever, don't let anyone or anything reduce you down to those separate sort of compartments. You are a multifaceted being. And it is good for you to, so there's the dualism, bad Rafi. And you are a multifaceted being, and it's important that you allow yourself to be all of that and to grow throughout these processes that take place, right? Don't ever limit yourself to anything that anyone tells you. You always get a chance to choose. Now, before I go off on a complete tangent, I will give you some overviews. So, solar eclipse is an initiatory energy. It's a beginning of some sort, because it's kind of like a supercharged or jacked up new moon that's like, yeah! It's got lots of energy behind it. And when you get a new moon, you've got the sun and the moon together, right? That in itself is the god and the goddess coming together in creation. Now, this one is taking place in Cancer, which is really important for loads of reasons. So the whole axis of Cancer and Capricorn are going to be lit up. Cancer represents the mother, in the fourth house, protection, love, nurturing, nourishment, that place that you go to seek shelter, to seek comfort, or even lock yourself away from the harsh realities of the outside world. It's your feelings, it's your attachments, it's your bonds, right? Whereas Capricorn, and the Cancer is the natural house of the moon as well, so it's really worth keeping an eye on that. And it represents the mother, because it comes in the guise of the fourth house. Whereas Capricorn, where we've got quite a lot going on in the opposite sign, and this is where the eclipses are going to bounce between, right, is the 10th house. This is the external structure, the things out in the world, but it's also the father. It's where we meet authority, it's where we meet governance, it's where we meet the things that we appear to not be able to change. It's where, the 10th house is your career, how you show up out in the world, how you are presented or received by the wider world. So these are really big things to look at, right? And because it's the father, it's the line in the sand that you meet, where you will go no further, where you meet authority, where you get that kind of, no, you will not pass, you cannot do this. And it's not always about the negative stuff. Sometimes it's to hold you back from something or to teach you a lesson, right? So when you see that mother-father axis, that's kind of what's going on there. So it's really important to pay attention to that stuff. What I've talked about, it's a process. Good to look at where this is happening. Right, so try and stay with me on this, and I'm using myself as an example so that you can do this for yourself, right? So look at where the eclipse is taking place, and then think about where that happens according to your sun, moon, and ascendant. So my moon sign, I'll start there, is in Cancer. So this suggests that my inner world, possibly even my home, may change over the next 3 to 6 months. Something about my emotional inner world, or even my home, my dwelling, may very well change because it's happened, or the identity of my home, or something of that nature may very well change, right? As a Leo ascendant, this is happening in my 12th house. My 12th house is all to do with the past, the things that are hidden, that are private, subconscious drives and not necessarily desires and urges, but it can also be hidden enemies. It could be people that don't necessarily, present themselves as one thing, but don't necessarily mean you good. Then finally, as an Aquarius, this is happening in my 6th house, which is all to do with my work. So something to do with my old work, my old workplace, my old work life could be coming through. So those are my big three, sun, moon, and ascendant, right? It's good for you to find out where they are, because it's going to give you that kind of different dynamic of understanding, so that you get an idea of where this is happening, why, not why it's happening, you know why, because of the astrology, how it's likely to unfold, and what that could possibly mean for you. So one of the things that I've put here is it could suggest that things are about to take a big leap forward over the 6 months because of services rendered, right? So the 12th house is the past, and the 6th house is work. So it could be some efforts that I've already sown in my own personal past over the last 6 months may now start to yield results or dividends or rewards, you know, depending on what I've put out there. And I'm currently crossing fingers, toes and bits at the moment, like thinking back like, shit, have I done enough? Hopefully I have. You know, I've done my best to be of complete service to you guys in and of the world. So with that said, let's get to the personal astrology for each sign. Take care. See you in a moment. Hi Aries, welcome to your solar eclipse special with me, Raphael. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for joining me. So let's just go straight into it. All right, so the eclipse is happening in your 4th house down here in Cancer. So this is you here, and the eclipse is taking place in the sign of Cancer, which happens to be your 4th house. So this is going to talk about your home, your environment, but it's also going to talk about your heritage, your family, right? So the eclipse tends to bring a beginnings, and because, you know, for a second we do lose the light, that's what it's about, right? It could see, or it very often sees, a reset button of some kind. So since a new moon is a beginning, this is about something that will likely unfold or begin to make its way into your life. And this can take place in the shape of a move. It could look like something coming, you know, so something about your home life is changing. This is where you start to look at where you live. This could be about you wanting or needing to change your home in some way. So it doesn't necessarily mean the upheaval of a move exactly, but it could talk about a move, but equally it could talk about you changing the environment in some way, welcoming different things into your environment. For some of you, this could be welcoming in a child. For some of you, this could be welcoming in a partner, like somebody that you've met and you decide to move in with them. There's something about your 4th house that represents your home, where you live, where you seek shelter. And for you, there is a big change coming in that area. Now, because your 4th house also represents your family, your heritage, the roots that you have, where it is that you come from, it's your foundation, right? It's what brought you up through the world. So you could see a big change in family. There could be something where maybe a parent, if they're elderly, ends up moving in with you. It could see big shifts across how you view your family and ultimately how they view you. This could see you really looking in some way, shape or form at the past, right? Because the moon has that link. You've got it in Cancer there as well, which clings to things that it knows, to things that are comfortable, to things that it is familiar with. So yeah, it could also see you decorating or changing your surroundings in some way. So it's really important that's going to be important for you over the next 6 months. You will be looking at your home life and how this unfolds for you. Cancer also represents the mother, you know, as I talked about in the blurb before the video. So way opposite in the house of, in Capricorn, or should I say in your 10th house. This will be especially relevant for you if you're an Aries rising. All of these videos will be probably more accurate for you in your rising sign than anything else. So then in the 10th house, you've got Capricorn, yes, but you've also got Saturn and the South Node. And the 10th house is about you. It's about your public image, your public persona, how people see you, how they receive you. It's about your career or your destiny out in the world, so to speak. And because you've got Saturn there, Saturn's about mastery. So this really asks you, and will have been asking you over the last however many months or moons that he's been in there, is really asking you to dig deep and ask yourself, what do you want? How do you want people to see you? How do you expect people to receive you in the way that you show up? Now, because the South Node is there as well, something about your career, something about your working life, and when I say working life, not your everyday routine, I'm talking about the broader general scope of how you show up in the world is starting to change and also being released. The thing with the South Node is it tends to see you letting go of something or phasing something out. When you get an opposition, this is an uncomfortable energy because they're squaring off against each other. The eclipse is trying to welcome something into your life in regards to your home and family and environment, whereas the career sector in Capricorn and Saturn and the South Node are saying, right, well, if you want that, something about the career is going to have to give. Something about how you show up or where you go from here is going to have to change, is going to have to be released. And you might find that you have that battle going on between your career and your home. You might find that maybe your home life and your family demand more from you for any number of reasons. It might be the same with the career, where, you know, the boss or the job or the company that you own or work for is saying, look, if you want forward progression, we're going to need more commitment from you. And so therefore your home life has to, you know, it's about finding that balance between the two, but not letting one take over the other. It's an opposition. So they're kind of, you know, dusting up to find out who's going to get the bigger piece of the pie in regards to your attention. Then in your 9th and your 12th houses, you've got Jupiter in Sag, and then you've got Neptune in Pisces, and they're squaring, right? So a square aspect in astrology, and I always say this, it's an energy that makes you uncomfortable enough to make a change. Your 9th house is your higher philosophies, it's higher learning, your different understandings, it's your belief system and your belief structure, what you really at a core level believe about yourself, about the world, about people, right, and your interaction with them. Your 9th house also is about travel and foreign cultures and different expansive aspects of the world and yourself. That's squaring Neptune in your 12th house, which could see you, because Neptune is the house of Neptune is the ruler of Pisces, so they're both really strong here. It's not like one of them saying, oh well, you know, I'm in my home, so I'm gonna. They're both at home in these signs, right? In Neptune in Pisces is at home, Jupiter in Sagittarius is at home, so they're kind of like, you know what, I am at home, I am in my strength, I am in my dignity, I will ultimately be heard for who I am and what I truly have to say. So this Pisces Neptune thing is creating a lot of it could be for some of you it could be confusion about what you believe, about where those beliefs actually come from, you know, really observing your own subconscious to say, well shit, you know, that's some messed up crap. Where did that come from? Where does that belief or the root of that belief come from? Remember, you're looking at your 4th house in the eclipse, so it could be something in relation to that, right? It's really worth keeping an eye on that and asking yourself, is that the case? The other thing is, you could be getting a lot of spiritual downloads because the 9th house is higher learning and philosophy and wisdom and all of the, you know, even a little bit of a little bit of esoterica, not so much as like the occult, like the 8th house, but a little bit more esoteric. And when you get the Neptune aspect, this could be really spiritual. You could be getting spiritual downloads of information that really fill you up and give you a completely different outlook and a totally, you know, totally different expansive look of your belief structure, which could really come through a change. The problem that you will have is these things are going to rub up against each other, right? They're going to have a bit of a punch up, so to speak. It could see you facing some very hard truths about yourself, about your past, about how your beliefs have shaped your current understanding or situation. And this could very well come because the 9th house is, you know, foreign cultures, like I said. It could be that you end up talking to or meeting somebody, or, you know, not necessarily a group, but you come into contact with people that are very, very different to you. And they will force you, and their way and their outlook of things will force you to look at things and possibly yourself in a different light. And some of what comes up, because it is a square, may not necessarily be like comfortable. It may not be nice, but it will prompt change within you. And that's not to say that everybody else is right and you're wrong, not at all. It's to say that there is something within you that does need to shift, and the external world and the astrological climate will give you what you need to make you uncomfortable enough to say, right, I'm going to make a conscious change about this thing. So with that said, let's see what the tarot has to say for and to you. And you've got the Emperor card, right? The Emperor represents the sign of Aries. So this is you, right? This is all about changing yourself. It's all about evolving who you truly are at a really core level. And if you allow yourself to show up and to be who you are and to accept yourself with all of those perfect bits and those flaws, you will ultimately be a completely different person when you get out of this, because there will be so many different things about your fundamental being that have changed, right? The Emperor card is a great card because it suggests that you are in the driving seat. So as comfortable as all of this is, it's all you, right? Whatever comes up, it's all you. It's all aspects of self that you can work with, nourish and grow. And ultimately with the Emperor is like a guide, right? They teach, they show you how to do things by kind of saying, right, this is how it needs to be done. I will lead by example. So that's what you're doing, but ultimately you're doing this for yourself. Wish you an abundance of all of that good stuff. Let me know in the comments whether you loved it or loathed it. Take care and I'll see you soon.